Gen Z, like they're coming into the workforce and they're bringing all this and they're entitled and they're this and they're that. And like, what do we do to basically crush their soul? I think these kids know what they want. They know who they are.
Mhm,
They know what
mhm.
they're willing to accept from a workplace.
Yeah.
And maybe we're the ones that need to change and have gotten it wrong. And they know what it's supposed to be to go to work and not be so attached and demand that they are accepted and
Yeah.
have a workplace that respects them.
One of the things mentioned in this white paper was reverse mentorship.
All right, everybody, welcome to the drive home. My name's Kristen Kavanaugh. I'm so excited for our guest today. We've got Patty Prado from the University of Texas in Austin here today. Patty is the executive director of career initiatives for the College of Liberal Arts. And so, near and dear to my heart as an English major, I am so glad to have you here. And she's also a mom of a rising freshman in college. And so, this conversation is so pertinent given everything that we're hearing about AI and, Gen Z. So, two of my favorite topics, and no better person to chat with than Patty today. So, Patty, welcome to the drive home.
Thank you, Kristen. So glad to be here.
Yeah, well, how you doing? How you feeling? You like I said, you're a mom of a rising freshman. What's life like for you right now?
Yeah, it's the end of a chapter. It's the beginning of a new chapter. My daughter did graduate high school last week, a week ago today, and it's exciting. I'm embracing the term. I don't know where I heard it from. Bird launcher.
Oh, okay.
So not I'm not an empty nester. I'm going to be a bird launcher, launching my bird out into the world, and that's kind of the way I'm trying to look at this.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. And given that you have 8 chickens at home, I feel like you are the best bird mom to be doing this. So,
this is true.
Patty, tell us a little bit about your role over at the career initiatives, and like what that means, just to give us some context setting for the conversation today.
Sure. So I serve as the executive director of career initiatives in the College of Liberal Arts at UT Austin, and I oversee an amazing team of 20 full time staff. This is our liberal arts career services team, and we serve all of our undergraduate and graduate students in the college, which is 11,000 plus
Oh, wow.
students. And liberal arts is an amazing place with so many different majors and areas of focus. And so our students are really leaving here going on to do anything and everything. And so it's our job to kind of meet them where they are, empower them, inform them, and support them as they follow their path, wherever their path is going to be.
I feel like liberal arts is kind of having a moment right now, given everything that we're hearing in AI. Yes, everybody's still like jazzed about STEM, but I think there's so much, consternation around what is going to happen with STEM careers that people are
Mhm.
really looking at liberal arts degrees as something that might be a little bit more enduring. Is that something you're hearing or feeling, or that the students are, maybe you're seeing more students kind of matriculate through?
Yes, definitely. And the reality is employers hire based on skills, not major. And
Mhm.
of course, there's exceptions for our wonderful friends in electrical engineering and nursing and architecture. But the majority of employers are practicing skills-based hiring, and they're not looking for a specific major. They're looking for a good fit for their team, for the job that they need to get done. And so, students have a lot of options. And at a big place like UT, you can mix and match different minors, different certificates, different areas of study, dual degree, triple major. You can really make it work for you in whatever your interests and passions are. I do think the liberal arts provides the best foundation for being a lifelong learner and being adaptable and changing with the times.
Right. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Again, I went to an engineering focused school and got an English degree. And so we can debate all the reasons that I had to do that. But I do think that, having a liberal arts degree, it gives you those skills to help you communicate. And that's what we're seeing now is people just really need to be able to express themselves, work with each other, and know how to human. And I think liberal arts degrees like give us the ability to do that. Talk
Definitely.
to me about the students. I'm very
Yeah.
interested in Gen Z. My entire staff is Gen Z, and so they teach me
Mm,
more than just the social media and the TikTok. Like they teach me so much
yeah.
about, their values and how
Mhm.
they view the world. And so I'm curious about your take on these folks that are coming up that seem so different than maybe you and I and the generations that came before us.
Yeah, definitely. It really is an honor and a privilege to be around young people and to every day be on this campus and connect with students and talk with them and support them and listen to them and learn from them. In addition to my role overseeing career services, I also am a leadership coach on campus. So I get to have some pretty powerful one-on-one conversations with undergrad and graduate students across all majors at UT and help them on their leadership journey. And so, I learn so much from these coaching partnerships, and I think sometimes I get more out of them than
Right,
the students do.
right.
And so, I think students are they're they're of course a little uneasy about the future, but I think they're also excited to be themselves. And you touched on just a moment ago, kind of values, and I think I see that a lot. That our students, they know what their values are,
Right.
and they actually articulate them, I think, quite well. And they're proud of their values. And I think that's fantastic. I think having a sense of understanding of oneself is really helpful as you move on in life and grow up and grow out. And I see that with our students. They're comfortable telling you
Yeah.
what's important to them and what isn't. Maybe in a way that I didn't. I might have been thinking that, but maybe I was too scared to actually say it to someone. And so I love seeing that when students are completely themselves in front of me. And at times it might feel like they're not as professional as they could be, but
Right.
maybe they're just comfortable being themselves. And maybe I need to adjust my expectations sometimes, not
Yeah.
always, but sometimes.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. I was at a conference, here locally a couple months ago now, and I was sitting on a panel, and one of the questions came from the audience. It's a workforce culture,
Mhm.
summit. And so the person asked a question. She said, Gen Z, like they're coming into the workforce and they're bringing all this and they're entitled and they're this and they're that. And like, what do we do to basically crush their soul? And I'm like, wait, I'm like, you're
No.
probably not gonna like this answer, but I wholeheartedly disagree with you. I
Mhm.
think these kids know what they want. They know who they are.
Mhm.
They know what
Mhm.
they're willing to accept from a workplace.
Yeah.
And maybe we're the ones that need to change and have gotten it wrong, and they know what it's supposed to be to go to work and not be so attached and demand that they are accepted and
Yeah.
have a workplace that respects them. And, I think she did not appreciate my answer, but I think that's it, like, we just have to be willing to say, like, maybe we got it wrong, and these kids have something going for them that they know a different way that might be better for all of us.
I think you're exactly right, and I think of my own daughter calling me out,
Right.
frequently on things, and most of the time she's actually right.
Right.
I just didn't wanna hear it.
Right.
But, I think, this comes back to I had an opportunity to listen to this great speaker at a conference recently. Her name is Christina Marcos, and she is co-authored a white paper on intergenerational intelligence and thinking of Gen Z and the workforce. And just as you said, what can employers do to best support and work with and help their Gen Z workers. And one of the things mentioned in this white paper was reverse mentorship,
Yes.
where the young workforce is actually mentoring and teaching skills and sharing ideas with their superiors, with older, more experienced professionals. And I love that. And I think mentorship can go both ways, and it probably should, especially in a workplace setting.
Absolutely. I mean, we learned that in the military, right? Like where, if you walk in as a new lieutenant or as a brand new captain, You have to listen to the people who kind of know things and who have been there, right? And so
Yeah.
those people might be younger than you many
Mhm.
much of the time. And if you're not
Yeah.
willing to be curious and be open-minded, then you really are losing out on wisdom that can help you with some of that just street knowledge that you just can't pick up, if you've never been in the situation. I listen to my team all the time. I learn so much from them, and it really is that exchange of information that I think is helping all of us navigate this moment that we're all trying to live and survive in.
Yeah. And I think one more thing that comes out of that listening and learning is a feeling of respect. And I think a lot of our young folks want more respect and feel at times like they're not given respect. And, I'm Gen X. And so, I did kind of grow up on like respect is earned.
Right.
And I don't think a lot of young people think that. I think they think it should just be there.
Right.
And so that's also been interesting for me as I really accept the fact that I think I've underestimated generational differences between myself and my daughter and a lot of younger people. And so I'm always catching myself, kind of okay, how can I do that a little differently?
Right, exactly. I mean, being a parent, I swear, is the best learning opportunity that there is because they are not afraid to point out where we are wrong and where we need where we have some learning and growing to do. So, it is a gift that just keeps giving. So, let's talk about this a little bit. I wanna get a little bit deeper into the AI conversation.
Hmm.
So I think if you read the headlines, like, what you hear is AI is taking over. They're gonna take all of the entry level jobs. There is no place for recent graduates. We all know, you specifically know this is not true. I know it's not true. But how do we help demystify the narrative that is going on right now that Gen Z is just walking to a workforce or an economy that where there's no place for them?
Yeah, I mean, there is so much in the media, and it is kind of funny when I read completely contradictory
Right,
stories from different sources within the span of a few hours.
right,
So you know, I I personally feel like it's still too early to really make some pretty big statements about how AI is going to affect us all.
right.
I think there are some clear uh, signposts on how it can obviously help automate certain things. However, I think it really is an opportunity for young people, high school students, college students to find the balance of how do you learn to use AI effectively and ethically,
Mhm.
um, and not rely on it, and
Right,
know that you have many amazing human skills that
right,
will be valuable.
right.
And so, if anything, I look at it as, you know, while AI may be taking some jobs, taking, it's also going to be creating
Yes.
a lot of new jobs. And I don't think people have really maybe thought about that as much.
Yeah.
I speak with parents of admitted students here in the College of Liberal Arts, like at family orientation. And I remind them that their child may have a job when they graduate UT that has not been created yet.
Right, right.
Likely, they might have a job that actually has not been created yet, and
Right.
so I'm an optimist, and I choose to kind of look at this as AI is a new tool. It's
Yes.
a form of technology that we should learn more about.
Yep.
We should not fear it, resist it, but we hold it with other things,
Yes.
and we really. I'm I guess I'm a little bit of a skeptic, but I'm cautious.
Yes.
So I think that's kind of my approach.
We had a guest come on a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about how people view AI as inevitable. And he's like,
Mm,
It's not inevitable. This is not written yet." And
yeah.
so, we still have a lot of time to shape and
Mhm.
mold what this is gonna look like, but
Yeah.
nobody really knows. And
Yeah.
so there's no need to fear something that we just don't really have a good understanding of what the actual impact is gonna be.
Agreed. Totally.
Yeah. Okay, so this also isn't the first time he brought this up as well. This also isn't the first time that we've seen a major shakeup in the economy as folks are graduating. So we were looking back at like 2007, 2008 in the financial crash. I'm sure if you see, do you see any similarities to the workforce that students are walking into now as maybe we were looking back then when it felt like there was some doom and gloom around finding entry level jobs as the economy was crashing?
Yeah, I kind of want to reframe this a little and think about how students are viewing their options.
Yes.
And so to me, one of the challenges our career services team faces with students is that students have a list of basically dream first destination jobs
Right.
and then get disappointed if
Right.
those don't work out.
Right.
However, they have a lot of other options,
Exactly.
but they are
Exactly.
choosing not to apply for those things.
Exactly.
They are choosing to really narrow their field of, industries, professions, job titles. And so my reframing is there are great jobs out there. Many times our high school and college students are really focused only on a few
Yeah.
that might actually be the job that they get 3 jobs from now.
Yes. Yes. Okay, I wanna go in a little bit different direction. So the last conversation we had was around ambition. And so I'm curious because that's why we're wired, right? You have to go work for the Teslas, you have to go work for the Googles, you have to go work for, the Metas, or else you're not making it, right? And so and I think you're Gen Z, I'm like a elder millennial, like, that's how I was wired, like, you have to go get the best of the best, and that's still not gonna be good enough, and then you have to go get something even better, and if you're not doing that 3 years later, then and so how do you think ambition and the way that we're raising our children is kind of playing into that mentality of, like, "I've got to get the best out of college or my career is
Yeah.
over?"
Well, I think that mentality is the parents' mentality.
Mhm.
I don't think it's the student's mentality. And I think parents need to chill out and trust their kids
Right,
and trust the process
right,
and trust universities that support their students.
right,
I do think there's that mentality many times comes from the parents, and so then this if the students are getting that from home, then they embody that as well.
right,
But I think there are a lot of young folks out there that maybe their parents are pretty open about what they can do, where they can go. They're not putting pressure on them to have a certain type of job or major in a certain field, and I think those students have the most freedom and courage to try a lot of things, and they will find their place.
yeah.
Um,
And
mhm,
and I think there's a piece of that that's around, purpose too, and so,
mhm,
why are we pushing for folks to go, to the big tech companies
yeah.
or, like, the big
Mhm,
financial
mhm,
institutions?
mhm.
Um, is it to find purpose, or are we chasing a paycheck, or are we chasing a title? And so I'm curious about how you think
Yeah.
about discussing the role of purpose with your
Mhm.
students as they're thinking about their career planning.
Yeah, great question. And I do want to kind of pause and put a disclaimer, as I say, a young person or a young adult or young folks. I mean, I don't want to generalize every person. Everyone is different, has a different background, has different interests and goals. But on the whole, I do think helping our young people define success for themselves is
Yes.
really an important part of this conversation. And many times they are defining success based on what a parent or a family member has said, and or what they see in the media or other places. And so, honestly, those are some of the best conversations I have with students. Is what's important to you?
Yes.
What's meaningful to you? Let's take some job titles and some salaries off the table for now. Obviously, we can't completely ignore that you need to make a living
Right.
and earn a decent wage. But for now, what do you really want to do?
Yeah.
And then how can we find something that is close to that
Right.
um, as you are figuring more things out in your life?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think you're highlighting too, like, the importance of having those mentors in your life that can help
Hmm.
you have those conversations, I think,
Yes.
um, I don't know that I had any, right? Like, I think I was just kind of on my own of, like, with the millennial, like, ambition of, like, you have to go to do the best, be the best, want more always, and so I think I was always just searching for, like, what is that next thing, but I didn't have anybody that was giving me any kind of good guidance, that might be wrong, and so I think that you're so involved with the coaching, that gives me some hope that folks aren't out there on their own, wallowing in their own anxiety.
Yeah, and I think the essence of coaching is not giving advice, not telling someone what to do, but really opening up this safe space to think through choices and solutions and options and opportunities. And many times I think not just our younger friends out in the world, but also ourselves, we get caught in a binary kind of way of thinking, well, I could do this or I could do that. I could say yes to this or I could say no to it. And we have to step back for ourselves, but also for a younger generation and say, if you think there's only two choices, you are missing five other
Right,
possible things
right.
that could actually be um, a next step for you. And so I love those conversations that open up the possibilities and really help some of our students, especially here on campus, think through other ways of thinking about their situation.
Yeah. So we like to do a segment on here, it's called "Two Things Can Be True," right? And so I think in this case, like, yes, it is true that AI is having an impact on the workplace and, the roles that students can walk into, to your point. And yes, students, can hold on, let me make sure I get this right. 'Cause I skipped a page in my notes. Alright, here we go. Okay, I'm gonna start again. So we like to do a session that we call Two Things Can Be True. And so I think when we think about Gen Z, we think about the workforce, we can tell Gen Z that they are talented, that they are capable, that they have all of these skill sets that are deeply needed, and also acknowledge that the workplace that they're walking into is changing, and that it may be fundamentally different than maybe 5 years ago. And so, how do we help not only students, but parents and employers hold both of those things as true and then kind of find a way forward?
Yeah, and this is where I think the approach that employers can take, does need to be intentional, knowing that they have an intergenerational workplace. And, what a recent grad is looking for and expecting and wanting, we need to take that into consideration to
Mhm.
create a positive job experience for them, regardless of if they stay 1 year or stay 5 years.
Right.
And so there is research that shows, more mentorship, clear expectations,
Mhm.
checking in often, having structure and a plan, helping a new employee, a recent grad, understand what the future could look like in terms of, promotion within their organization or something like that. Um, all of those things need to be pretty explicit and pretty direct. And I think all people like positive feedback,
Right.
but some of the research I've seen has shown that Gen Z really likes positive feedback, and that's not a bad thing. Being able to demonstrate, that someone has really contributed in a meaningful way to their team, that can be intentional,
Yeah.
and employers can do that. Uh, yeah,
And I think a lot of it is like, are we willing to dismantle some of what we have thought is the maybe institutionalized norms of the workplace? Like, so we have a lot of clients that are in news and media, right? And so there is a very specific way that the newsroom has worked for decades. And that doesn't work anymore, right?
yeah,
And so we have these debates, around how to help intergenerational workforces come together, specifically in the newsroom. And part of it is like, well, why do we need to be there 24/7?
oh
Like,
yes, yeah,
maybe that's just something that we need to let go, and so I think there's a piece of, like, are our workplaces willing to change with the times and let
yeah.
go of some of those institutional norms that just aren't serving us anymore? I was at a conference and we were talking about um, kind of like partnership organizations, where it's more senior leaders who are going in and talking with partners
Mhm.
and you have the, entry level talent who's building the decks and who are,
Mhm.
well, that doesn't work anymore. Like, we don't need anybody to build decks anymore. But
Yeah.
if the senior leaders are gatekeeping those partnership relationships,
Yeah.
then there is no entry point for people for new talent to learn how to have those conversations. And so
Mhm.
it is a fundamental shift about who does what in the workplace. And I
Mhm.
think, if we don't have organizations that are willing to be intentional and look at all of those different norms and say some of this stuff just isn't working anymore. We've got to change. Then I think that's where we get in trouble in not
Mhm.
having a pipeline inside an organization because we've shut people out just to keep norms in place.
I completely agree, and I think of just within our own team, we have student staff here in liberal arts career services, and when and where we can get them in front of other full-time staff, in front of
Mhm.
other leaders and managers, even if it's just a brief conversation or meeting, that's how you learn. That's how you get better at being professional by
Right.
being around other professionals.
Right.
And I completely agree that if an organization kind of pushes aside newer staff and kind of keeps them at distance, that's not helpful.
Right.
You're not helping them grow and learn.
Right, right. And you can't have AI take over your partner meetings, right? So at some point, like, the math stops mathing, and you have to have, people with a certain level of skill set. Otherwise, we come out with this gap of talent because
Hmm.
at some point, those partners or those, senior leaders have to retire or move on, but then you haven't taken the time to develop the skill sets that you actually need
Yeah.
because of a fear, essentially, and a scarcity mindset.
Yeah. And I would add another thing that, an employer can really help new employees, recent grads, some of their younger emerging professionals is give context. Give the why, give the background, share the history. If you're asking someone to work on a project, but you can't just expect them to do it really well without much more context and background and history of have we done this before? What worked? And I think sometimes we're quick to focus on the task without the context, and that is so helpful for anyone to do their job well. And does that mean you need to build in time for those conversations? Yes, you should, because that's probably where then that new hire will ask really interesting questions.
Right.
And I think that's a missed opportunity if you don't build that into supporting new graduates in their potentially their first or second job.
And I think that's where workplaces have an opportunity too. Like, we think about going fast, right? Like, I come out of tech, and so everything is move fast and break things. And so sometimes you get so caught up in moving fast and break things that you feel like you don't have time to give context, that you don't have time to have those conversations. And so I really think that's something for leaders to think about. And I was talking to people at Tesla about this. It's like, you can take the time now to give clarity and give context and answer questions and get people bought into what's going on.
Yeah.
Or you can move fast and really break things beyond repair because you weren't willing to take 5 minutes, in the beginning. And so I'm curious, like, what advice do you have to leaders to just get them to, like, again, understand that those things can be true. Like, you can still move fast and take time to
Mhm.
bring people on board with you.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And a former manager of mine framed it as, share your mental model. Help people understand why you're making the decision that you're making, why we are moving forward in this way. And I think we can do more of that. I think people appreciate it. It's also a way for people to get on board with a decision that they don't like, because they may have initially thought, and especially if you're a new professional, you don't know how the organization works. You don't know all of these things that people who've been there 10 plus years maybe know. And so when someone in a leadership role explains their thinking, the reasoning behind it, or even maybe why it's hard for them to do this, that goes a long way.
Mhm.
And I think that's very important to do. And we can model that behavior every day. We should be.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd like to do another segment that we call Headline to Heartline that is really like
Mhm.
getting to the humanity of issues.
Mhm.
And so, we've talked like that, the big headline is AI is replacing entry level work. Like we know that that's
Mm.
not true. But I'm curious about how that is hitting students just from a human, well, not only students, I want to talk about students and parents and leaders. But like, how are students feeling right now, given that they are inundated with the messaging around AI and what their careers that they're walking to kind of have to hold?
Yeah, I mean, I remind myself our college students are digital natives. And so, we're coming at, I think, learning, embracing, and accepting certain technologies differently. And to them, it's just, I would say for some, it's just, the next thing.
Right.
And then they add that to, their toolbox of all the tools and resources that they use. I mean, young people are certainly using AI. And again, this is where I don't want to put a broad paintbrush stroke on every young person or everyone who might consider themselves Gen Z. But I do think a lot of young people have actually a pretty good sense of discernment when it comes to, okay, this could help me for this, but I'm not going to use it for that.
Right.
And if they don't, they find out pretty quickly. And that's also part of our job as a career services team. We tell students, hey, we're getting some feedback, from employers that it's really obvious you're
Right.
using AI in your virtual interview, like
Right.
in real time.
Right.
Don't do that. You're not going to get hired.
Right.
And helping students find the balance of knowing how to use AI, using it, and again, not relying on it all the time.
Yeah.
So that in itself is a skill, that discernment of how to use a tool. So we have a lot of conversations about that with students, and we'll give them, here are some helpful prompts you should use in ChatGPT when you're trying to figure out what could be some questions you ask at the end of an interview. So use it as a tool and a resource, but obviously don't rely on it all the time.
How much of that do you feel like is coming from, the kind of the pressure that students are feeling to be perfect, right? Like to get the perfect internship, to have the perfect resume, to have the perfect network. Again, like this is coming from my millennial anxiety, right? Like you have to have
Mhm.
everything uh just to get in the door places. Like do you feel like students are still feeling that? And then how are you trying to help them
Yeah,
learn that you don't have to like have a personal Instagram brand to be able to go get a job at Target?
right. Yeah, I mean, and so much of that is because of their presence on social media. And
Right.
most people don't put negative, difficult, hard things
Right.
on their accounts. They're showing all the good stuff.
Right.
And so the social comparison is real and it's inaccurate. And I love the expression, comparison is the thief of joy. You're never going to win because you're looking at your weaknesses next to someone's strengths.
Mhm.
And so I do think there is still a lot of that with our younger generation wanting to appear like they are at the top of their
Right.
game, and they have this amazing life and all these things. However, I think they also uh, can identify in others, oh, they're not really like that.
Right.
That's what his or her, Instagram looks like, but that's not who they are in real life.
Right.
And so that in itself, again, that's a skill. And I think that plays into this. I also think you see a lot of young people embracing paper books. That's right. I said it. My daughter has loves taking pictures on disposable cameras, and it makes me laugh because I think, yeah, you're gonna have to like wait to see what those pictures look like.
Right.
That's awesome.
Right.
And I don't know. I think some of our young folks they they're probably feeling kind of caught in the middle
Right.
between having access to so much information and so many tools, and of course everything AI can do for them,
Yeah.
and realizing, especially as they're in more interpersonal relationships or moments with others in person, they realize AI can't break up with your boyfriend.
Right.
I mean, it shouldn't. I guess
Right.
you could use it. I wouldn't recommend. You really should do that in person.
Right.
And that's a hard conversation.
Yeah.
And so I think, that there's a lot of tension there, I'm
Yeah.
sure, for some of our young folks.
Well, I mean, I see it with, I've got younger kids than yours, that they're pandemic kids. And so those
Mhm.
interpersonal relationship skills, like we were at home when those were forming. And so I can imagine that there still is a gap for a lot of folks who are, in of school age at any moment right now. Because you had a couple years where, those dynamics weren't at play, as much as they could have been. And so I'm curious about that. Like, do you still see any gap in the ability to have those interpersonal connections with people due to the pandemic?
100%. And we hear it from employers. Students' skills in-person interviews are still lacking. Um, and being able to strike up a conversation in a networking event and make it feel genuine and real and authentic, we still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And I think some of our young folks, if they're nervous about doing it, then they don't do it, 'cause then they're worried they're not gonna do it right or
Right.
do it well, and
Right.
so they are part of the cycle of now not helping themselves grow and learn in this area because they just don't even try it.
Yeah. Yeah. So now what? I mean, I think that's what this all kind of comes down to. Let's start with the students first. Like, so what advice or words of wisdom can you bestow upon students as they either step into university and so that they can get the most out of it, or as they're stepping out of university into their first careers? What's the best that you can kind of give them for this moment?
Yeah. I mean, be flexible, be adaptable, put yourself in some uncomfortable situations and just accept that it's going to be uncomfortable. You will learn, you will grow, it will get easier, but by kind of denying yourself the practice, you're really harming yourself and kind of stunting your growth and maturity just as a human and as an adult. So certainly that is important. And there's a great book. I haven't read it, but it's on my list. AQ, Agility Quotient, a kind of a new kind of intelligence that is about being flexible and adaptable in uncertain and changing times. So, I mean, to me, that is the future skill that every young person should have and really start practicing. And you can start practicing it every day. I think also letting go of some really unrealistic expectations of how some things could be, should be. And again, some of that comes maybe from family who might also be outdated in their
Mhm.
understanding of how things actually are. And I think being okay with something that might not be amazing right now, that's kind of life. The more you can be okay with kind of just the maybe boring, dull moments, that's actually going to serve you well, because a lot of life is the boring, dull moments, and the fun stuff does happen. Great things, great moments happen, but that's not the norm.
Right.
So that's something. And then I think patience is an underrated skill, and I think being able to sit with a situation or an internship you don't like and just finish it.
Right.
Just
Yes.
finish that internship. You'll put it on your resume. You'll be able to talk about it down the road in an interview. You'll learn something from it, even if your main takeaway is, I never want to work, in that type of job or that type of company again.
Yeah.
That's really valuable.
Yes.
That helps you choose other paths.
Yes.
And if you never had that internship, then you wouldn't know.
Yes. Yes. I mean, that was my experience with internships, right? Like I worked for a year at an inpatient substance abuse recovery center. And it was hard work. It was work I recognized very quickly, like, this is not what I wanna be doing day to day, but I I had the resilience to stay with it and learn and grow and reflect and understand, like, what it was specifically, and so I think that's a piece too of, like, taking it to the next level is, like, it's not
Mhm.
enough to just say, like, "I don't wanna do this," but how do you do the work of really reflecting and understanding how that impacts who you are and what you believe and how you wanna show up in your next thing? to really make the best out of those experiences and learn and grow from the bad just as much as you can from the good.
Definitely. Hmm.
I want you to put your parent hat on for a second. What advice do you have for parents? Like, what should parents be doing and thinking now as they're sending students off to college, as they're
Mhm.
worried about their students graduating and thinking about what's next for them? How do we help the parents?
Yeah, I think I said this earlier, but I think a lot of parents need to chill out, and I think they need to give their child some space to figure things out for themselves. They need to be available, but not be hounding
Mhm.
their child. And again, I catch myself wanting to ask lots of questions
Right,
of my daughter, and then I think, you know what? Maybe she just doesn't want to talk right now. And
right,
if I don't necessarily ask her 10 questions about, her day or her friends or whatever, she actually opens up to me.
right.
And so sometimes just sending that silly meme and saying, I'm thinking of you as a parent, I think goes much further than, 21 questions and
Yeah,
feeling like we're interrogating our children. I also, I think we talked about this earlier, but kind of in person, interrelational experiences is something I would, strongly encourage that we create more spaces for our young people to have.
yes,
And, of course, they're going to be on Snapchat, TikTok, all the things. But they can also be out and about talking to people,
yes,
in real life,
yes, yeah.
and, when my daughter tells me she's going to a party, I that makes me happy, honestly. I'm like, "Yes, go to
Finally.
someone's house,
Yeah,
and talk to people,
yeah,
in person, and not be on your phone
yeah,
every second." So I think those in-person experiences, they're we can't stress them enough,
yeah,
and maybe that is, hey, go talk to your neighbor, across the street. He or she, maybe they're 70 or 80. They would love to have a young person come over and say hello to them and have a conversation and just get more practice in person communicating with different people.
yeah. In our previous episode, we were talking about how to build deeper connections, and so the guest was talking about how his family, 'cause he wanted to get everybody off social media, right? And, like, think that they have, like, all of these amazing networks and friends. And he's like, "Every family, opportunity that we have to go visit aunts and uncles and go to the birthday
Yes.
parties," like, "even if we have to travel," he's like, "We're a family of 4. I've got 2 kids under, 6, and we get on a plane and we go because I want them to be able to have those deep personal connections with their family and not think that just seeing what's going on in their Facebook is good enough." And so I think parents have an obligation at this point too to, like, how do you, especially younger kids, like, how do you help them know what it's like to have deep personal in-person connections with people and put them in situations where they're able to do that, to get them off their phone and get them off their iPad, to just know what it's like to talk to somebody older,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
talk to somebody younger in that
Right.
point too. Lastly, talk to me about, leaders and corporations. Like, what do they need to be thinking right now as they're receiving this new generation of the workforce and how to um, accommodate their values and their
Hmm.
skills and, make space for them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's making me think of some of the students that our team works with here in career services. And uh, students are applying to a lot of jobs for sure and applying to a lot of internships. And many times they never get any response back. So that is hard to hold. I haven't heard anything. So I put that back on organizations and folks in those hiring positions to communicate clearly with applicants, because young people and anyone of any age really wants that. Even if it's the closure that you weren't really wanting, it's closure. And so I think if we're expecting people to be effective and clear communicators, even in the job search and hiring practice, companies need to be effective and clear communicators with their applicants. So that's important, and that's hard and it hurts a lot of young people if this is their first time applying for full-time jobs and they hear nothing.
Right.
Um, that's one thing that comes to my mind. But I think there are intentional ways you can bring different folks in your company together, especially on intergenerational teams, and have opportunities for people to socialize and get to know each other on a personal level, and that usually helps teams work better on a professional level. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there as well.
We talk a lot about courage and agency on the podcast, and so I'm curious, kind of final thoughts. Like, what is courage, currency? No, final thoughts. What does courage and agency look like in this moment, and how can you encourage folks to show up with courage, given the uncertainty that we're all facing?
Yeah, I mean, they certainly go together. You can have all the agency and choice in your life, but if you don't have the courage to try something new, or send that email, or show up to that event, then the fact that it was available to you doesn't even matter.
Right.
So I think for some of our young adults, especially going into the workforce, reminding them that every small step matters. It does not have to be a big choice, a big move. It can just be something small, and the sooner I think you can get comfortable with taking small steps every day, those build up, they build confidence, they build momentum, and then you start to see, okay, I am creating my future with these small steps that I'm taking, because I think there is at times a feeling of wanting things to just be handed to us and land in our lap.
Mm.
And I think encouraging students to have realistic, small action steps
Yeah.
every week. That's I think pretty practical and doable, and then you start to see the results
Yeah.
if you're actually taking small steps over time.
Small steps of courage over time. I love it. Patty, this has been an incredible conversation. Before I let you go, we always ask people, what are you listening to on your drive home when have 20 or 30 minutes before get back and you need to unwind? What's on your playlist?
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of EDM,
Oh,
electronic
okay.
dance music,
All right.
and one of my favorites. I can I say oldie if it's only 20 or 25 years old, is Cascade.
Yes.
And so one of my favorite songs is actually 4 a.m. and I've been listening to it a lot lately. It's a good song to drive to. It
Yeah.
feels I don't know, it just has a good flow and a good feeling and kind of optimistic to me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I like Cascade.
I love it. We're gonna add some Cascade definitely for you to the playlist. Get everybody hyped and ready. So thank you so much for the conversation today. I really
Yeah.
appreciated it. Hopefully, our Gen Zers are listening and they've got something good out of it. I know as a parent, I've gotten a reality check that I probably need to chill out a little bit. And hopefully employers are listening to that these folks have something really special to add to the workplace. And so I am so grateful for the work that you all are doing out at UT, and excited for liberal arts students to join the workforce. I think they are the future and cannot wait. And so thank you for everything that you're doing. And thanks for joining us today on the drive home.
Thank you, Kristen.